Should the wealthy continually increase their savings? How much should the wealthy give to the poor? Would middle-class Americans be considered wealthy by St. Basil? How does greed lead to envy and covetousness? How can we store our wealth in storehouses in heaven? How can we fill our storehouses in the bellies of the poor? Is poverty the fault of the poor? Should the wealthy only give alms to the deserving poor? This reflection follows St. Basil the Great's homily to the rich man, which is also included in this social justice collection. We discuss St. Basil's life story as one of the 3 Cappadocian church fathers in the 4th century. We're planning another reflection on his homilies in time of famine and drought and against those who lended interest. This collection of homilies on social justice was delivered in response to a severe drought and famine that struck Caesarea. Please, we welcome interesting questions in the comments. Let us learn and reflect together. At the end of our talk, we'll discuss the sources used for this video. Please feel free to follow along in the PowerPoint script we uploaded to SlideShare, which includes illustrations. Our sister blog includes footnotes, and both include our Amazon book links. St. Basil's homily on "I will tear down my barns" is about the parable of the rich fool. But we must remember, when reading scriptures, to always read the verses and chapters preceding and following the scriptures we're interested in. All too often people do not read the preamble to this parable, which ties envy and covetousness to greed. One of the multitude said to Jesus, "Teacher, bid my brother divide the inheritance with me." But Jesus said to him, "Man, who made me a judge or divider over you?" And he said to them, "Take heed and beware of all covetousness, for man's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions." Now, we've previously reflected on St. Basil's homily on envy, plus a series of reflections on envy, including reflections by Martin Luther, Dr. Lohr, and the Catholic Catechism and the Church Fathers. This verse also teaches those of us who are teachers and preachers that when we're asked a question, the answer should be directed towards all who are listening, so all may benefit from the teachings. And Jesus told them a parable. The land of a rich man brought forth plentifully, and he thought to himself, "What shall I do? For I have nowhere to store my crops." And he said, "I will do this. I will pull down my barns and build bigger ones, and there I will store all my grains and my goods. And I will say to my soul, Soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Take your ease, eat, drink, and be merry." But God said to him, "Fool, this night your soul is required of you, and the things you have prepared, whose will they be? So is he who lays up treasure for himself and is not rich towards God." And we see this in Rembrandt's famous painting of the rich fool counting the coins he is hoarding, with the candlelight barely illuminating the darkness of his soul. And Rembrandt is known for the dark backgrounds in his paintings. And here his detailed rendering of his face wrinkled with continual striving for wealth tells us of a life wasted in selfish pursuits, a virtue that could have been. St. Basil rues. The rich fool was made miserable by abundance, wretched by the good things he possessed, and still more wretched by the good things he still expected to receive. He does not rejoice at all the good things he has in store, but is rather pricked by the heart by the wealth that slips through his fingers, lest perhaps, as it overflows the storehouses, some of it should trickle down to those outside his walls, so as to become a source of aid for those in need. As St. Basil observes, the rich fool did not keep a word of the commandments. Do not neglect to do good for the needy, and do not let mercy and loyalty forsake you, and share your bread with the hungry. He did not heed the urgings of all the prophets and teachers. St. Basil teaches us that whenever we receive sufferings or blessings, both these should increase our twofold love of God and love of neighbor. St. Basil teaches us, temptations come in 2 forms. Sometimes affliction proves the heart like gold in a furnace, testing its purity by means of suffering. But for many, it is the prosperity of life that is the greatest trial. For it is equally difficult to preserve one's soul from despair in hard times, and to prevent it from becoming arrogant in prosperous circumstances. Who benefits more, those who contribute or those who receive? St. Basil teaches us, "Through the fruits of your good works you produce for yourself, since the grace of good works redounds to those who perform them. You gave to the poor, and in doing so not only did you make what you gave truly your own, but you received back even more. For just as grain, when it falls upon the ground, brings forth an increase for the one who scatters it, thus also bread cast to the hungry yields considerable profit at a later time." And this sentiment is most clearly taught in Jesus' exhortation in the Sermon on the Mount. "Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust consume, and where thieves break in and steal. but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust consumes, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. And this is illustrated by the interesting story how the Apostle St. Thomas accepted substantial sums to build a sumptuous palace for a king in India, but instead gave the money to the poor. The king was quite angry when Thomas did not repent of this deception, but decided not to execute our saint when a departed relative appeared to him in a vision, thanking the king for the palace built where Elvis sings with his choir, where he too has been reserved a room fit for a king. And this is not scriptural, and it is a fanciful story, since the author takes the suggestion that Thomas is a twin literally, imagining that Thomas was a twin brother of Jesus, which totally wrecks the doctrine of the Incarnation. Likewise, St. Basil the Great teaches us that if we want storehouses to store our wealth, we have them in the stomachs of the poor. Lay up for yourself treasures in heaven. The riches deposited there are not devoured by moths, nor are they spoiled by corruption, nor do thieves break in and steal them. But you reply, I will give to the needy when I have filled up the second set of barns. St. Basil continues, you are so sure the years of your life will be many. Beware lest death the pursuer catches up to you sooner than you expect. And even your promise is not a token of goodness, but rather a sign of your evil intent. St. Basil warns, the hungry are perishing, the naked are freezing to death, the debtors are unable to breathe, and will you put off showing mercy until tomorrow? Demolish every storehouse of greed, pull down the roofs, tear away the walls, expose the moldering grain to the sunlight, lead forth from prison the fettered wealth, vanquish the gloomy vaults of mammon. Though you speak to yourself in secret, your words are examined in heaven. Thus it is from heaven that you will receive your reply. But what sort of things do you say to yourself? Soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, and be merry day after day. Oh, what senselessness! If you had the soul of a pig, what better news could you have given it? Why then are you wealthy while another is poor? Why else but so that you might receive the reward of benevolence and faithful stewardship, while the poor are honored for patient endurance in their struggles? But you, stuffing everything into the bottomless pockets of your greed, assume that you wrong no one. Yet how many do you in fact dispossess? St. Basil recounts the scriptures. How can I bring the sufferings of the poor to your attention, so that you might realize from what misery you are collecting riches for yourself? Oh, how desirable will these words appear to you on the day of judgment. Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. St. Basil repeats what Jesus warned us. But how great will be the trembling, the sweat, and the darkness that surround you when you hear the sentence, you who are accursed, depart from me into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was naked, and you did not give me clothing. And notice how this critical lesson is repeated, first from the perspective of the poor, then from the perspective of the uncaring wealthy man, who perhaps blamed the poor for their poverty. If they had only attended the same expensive schools as the rich man did, then they could have pulled themselves up by their bootstraps without any help from the wealthy. Now we'll discuss the sources we used for this video. This writing by St. Basil the Great on social justice is part of the popular patristic series of St. Vladimir's Seminary Press. Usually these are excellent translations. Some volumes also have the Greek, but not this volume. And the introduction and footnotes were excellent. They didn't discuss how many ancient manuscripts survived, but likely multiple copies did survive, since the Cappadocian Church Fathers, including St. Basil, his brother St. Gregory of Nazianzus, and his best friend St. Gregory of Nyssa were beloved by the early Church. And we previously reflected on St. Gregory of Nyssa's homilies on the Sermon on the Mount. And we will be reflecting on the next steps of avarice and poverty we are climbing in the Ladder of Divine Ascent. In his commentary, Father Vasilios references both St. Basil's on social justice and John Chrysostom's on wealth and poverty, which are homilies on the parable of Lazarus and his friend, the rich young man. The YouTube description includes a link to our PowerPoint script that we uploaded to SlideShare and also our blog. Please support this channel by sharing this video with your friends and by clicking on the like and subscribe buttons and by clicking on the Amazon links to purchase any of the books we discussed, which will earn us a very small affiliate commission. And please consider becoming a patron of our channel. Plus, we will host special discussion groups for our patrons. Plus, you can click on the Meetup or small M icon to participate in our online discussions, where we practice our future YouTube scripts. And please click on the links for other videos that will broaden your knowledge and improve your soul.